All right, well, it looks like our room is filling up pretty quickly, so let's hop in and get started. Today, we are talking all about participant grouping. This is a really important design feature if you're interested in segmenting the demographics in your conversations or in your exchanges. And this is our masterclass series. So this is where you learn deep dives into product insight, exchange design, working with results. And I'll let you know as well that if you want to join the conversation on social media, our hashtags are hashtag TEVE and hashtag TEMasterclass. And let me introduce myself. So I see some familiar faces. I see some new faces in the attendee list. To those who haven't been to one of these sessions before, hello, my name is Tila Beischer and I am a customer success manager here. So what I do is work with thought partners primarily in education to really do strategic partnership. So working with them through product onboarding, through strategic design coaching, ensuring they really know how to work with their results. And then I also produce these events. So we have our masterclass series and we also have getting started workshops as well. We do have a broader community available to you beyond just these onboarding events. So lots of virtual events that you are welcome to attend. We also have an amazing, really robust help site with lots of tutorials, lots of videos, including a video for what we're going to talk about today. So you can always refer back to that. And then you do have your dedicated Thoughtexchange team as well. And thinking about that dedicated Thoughtexchange team, I'm going to plant a seed in your mind. So today we're talking about participant groups, which is actually still a beta feature. So if you're looking at your account after today and you're thinking, I don't see participant groups, what you need to do is to reach out to your customer success manager or your account manager and ask them to turn that feature on for you, and then you'll be able to test it out. Because it's beta, we want to hear your feedback on it. We want to hear how it worked for you. How could it work better? Be really vocal with sharing that information with us, please. So this is exactly what we're going to cover today. We're going to spend a lot of time actually setting up an exchange with participant groups together. I think that can be one of the strongest ways to learn how to use this feature. Then we're going to go through a dashboard too, so that you know what does that look like on the end result as well. I want to make sure that when you leave today, you have the learning outcomes of knowing exactly what a participant group is and how it's different than a survey question. I want you to know when you're going to use them. So what types of exchanges and what situations are valuable to use participant groups for. And then I want you to know how does this impact the way that I understand and share my results. As always, we're going to be about 30 minutes and we're going to wrap up with the Q&A exchange. So let's get started talking about what are participant groups. So sometimes it can be really helpful to be able to split your participants into a few groups. And I want you to think about it in two ways. So let's use a return to the office exchange as an example. Maybe you're running an exchange with your whole organization and you're wanting to hear what are those important things for each of your different sites that they need to keep in mind in terms of returning to the office. And so employees in different offices or different departments might have different things to say contingent on the location. And so if you imagine the starring behavior, if one of your employees shared, I'm concerned about traffic in the hallways and not having enough space, you wouldn't know which hallway they were talking about if you didn't have them in the participant group. So it allows it to be really relevant to each of those different segments or each of those different demographics. The participation groups really allow you to create a single demographic question or survey question that is used to sort those participants into segments. When the participants join the exchange, they land in the exchange just for them. So that means that they're only seeing the thoughts of other people who have self-identified into that group. And think of that, for example, if you work in the education sector, think of that, maybe you want all of your teachers talking together, all of your parents talking together, and all of your students talking together. It allows it to be really highly relevant to them as well. So I'm going to give you a visual. Imagine that you have your umbrella and that's your exchange, and underneath it you have different buckets. The umbrella is the exchange as a whole, and then the participant groups are the different buckets. So you could have your parents, your teachers, you could have your site staff, your admin team, etc. And each bucket can only share and star each other's thoughts. This is really valuable for you for a couple different reasons or a couple different use cases. One would be the one that we just talked about. So thinking about site-specific or site-level specific exchanges. If you're making organizational decisions that are contingent on knowing the site or department, that can be really valuable. If you were thinking about doing, for example, a culture survey, or a culture exchange, you want to check in with everyone about organizational culture, but you want to know about it on the team level. Maybe your participant groups are the departments or the teams. That could give them a lot of insight and give you a lot of insight too. It can also be really valuable to think about demographic groups and who needs to be talking to who. If you're running a student exchange and you think that it is more valuable for elementary students to be talking to elementary students, middle school to middle school, and high school to high school, that could be a structure that you follow as well. For participants, the huge value for them, and this is why I want you to keep this in mind, is that the starring and the rating is much more relevant and relatable to them. The thoughts that they are seeing are all coming from other participants within that shared context. So for example, staff all within the same office or teachers all at the same school. So it becomes a little bit more meaningful and engaging for them as well. And I know that we're talking about segmenting and breaking apart, but for you, you need to really be able to collate all of your results. And that's what happens in the dashboard. So we'll go over that together. Essentially, you're able to see trends for the entire exchange. So see the dashboard as you would any other exchange, but you're also able to segment and toggle quite a few of the Discover dashboard tools to look just at those specific participant groups. All right, so let's hop into a couple technical details about participant groups. We understand what they are. So they are the ability to set up different segments in the conversation. We know why we want to use them, because it might be more valuable for us to have that segmented information, and it might be more valuable for the participants to experience that together. But how they really work, and we're going to hop into the tool to do this together, I want you to keep in mind a couple technical details. So the first is that it is still one exchange when you're running with participant groups. So you have one question for all groups. If you want to ask a different question to each group, you need to set that up as separate exchanges. And then that's a good thing to keep in mind when you're doing your question design for anything participant groups related is, does it read the same way to all of your different groups? And so by that, it would mean if you were asking about distance learning, for example, you didn't say, how has teaching online been going for you? You would say, how has the experience of distance learning been going online for you? And think about that and the fact that students would be able to answer that, teachers would, parents would as well. The other thing to really keep in mind that is important is that when you're using participant groups, you can still use survey questions. So remember, survey questions are your way to break apart demographics within the exchange too. You can layer essentially a participant group with a survey question, but everyone answers the same survey questions. So you want to make sure that all groups are able to answer it and that it's not redundant as well. The last detail is maybe the most important, and I want you to write this down if you are taking notes or to just put it in your memory bank, is that once you launch the exchange, so once the exchange is live, you cannot add any participant groups. And so it's up to you to double check your list before you go live that every group is represented there, because you cannot add any. What you would have to do is actually duplicate it. So create a new exchange with a new link. So that's a really important habit to be getting into. All right, and let's actually hop in and set up an exchange together too. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into our Thoughtexchange room and create one together. You can hear a bit of background noise. I just got a new puppy and he is adorable, but a little bit noisy. So all of us here are used to working from home now, but just wanted to mention that. All right, we're gonna click on create. We're gonna click on new exchange and see here that I have participation groups enabled on my account. If you click on create and you don't see it, please reach out to your account manager or your CSM and they can enable that for you. The first thing that we're gonna do is, like every single exchange, we're gonna set up an exchange question. And I'm gonna use the question library just to find an example one. So let's perhaps look at one, learning and development. Let's run this professional development one. So what kinds of professional development do you feel are needed to help you achieve your goals? And if I'm thinking about professional development, maybe it's really valuable for me to know what is happening in a department level. So maybe my participant grouping questions are going to be, what department are you in? And that way, everyone in my sales department, everyone in my marketing department will be sharing and rating the thoughts of each other. So building this collaboratively together. Perfect. Remember that the question needs to make sense for everyone, and then everyone reads the same introduction. I click on save, and then I'm going to create that participation group. So you can see that when I click on it there, I get the prompt of what it is. So it'll remind you as well. Click on participation groups, and then just like survey questions, you do have to set up the question and the answer for your participants. So remember that we said we're going to try department. So I'm going to say, what department do you work most closely in? Knowing perhaps that some of my employees have a bit of a crossover role. I'm going to write marketing. I'm going to write sales. I'm going to write administrative, maybe leadership, and so on and so on. When I'm thinking about writing this list, I want to make sure that every department is represented, and just like survey questions, that there's no one with just a few people in the department. And so imagine that I only had 4 people on my leadership team. Maybe I would combo that with administrative. So that way I am still doing that key tenet, that key goal that you always have with Exchange design of protecting personal identities and confidentiality while still creating those groups. So that's a really good tip to keep in mind. All right, we're going to imagine that I've set up all of my groups here. I click on save, and then I'm also able to layer on those survey questions. So maybe something that would be valuable for me to know if I'm asking about professional development within the department level, maybe I want to know how long the people have worked there for. So maybe I'm going to ask as a survey question, how long have you worked here? And I'm going to have 0 to 1 years, maybe 1 to 5, because I want to be very broad and not identifying anyone. And then I'll say 5+ as well. And remember that everyone in the exchange, in every participation group, is going to have to answer the survey question. So if you think about that from an endpoint, think about looking at that heat maps tool. You're going to be able to look at, these are the themes that came up in the exchange. This is my participation group, and these are the survey questions. So I could say, these are the most important themes for my people in sales who have worked here for 1 to 5 years. And it's going to really allow you to narrow in and to target those really specific actions that you could take. So I'll click on save. The last thing to do before clicking on launch, I want to double check everything. And I want to double check participation groups again, just to make sure that I haven't missed anything. Maybe I'm realizing here I did actually miss our R&D team, for example. Click on save, click on launch, and then you open up with the invite screen. This is another really important detail for you to keep in mind, is I want you, when you are creating participant groups, to only send the link that you grab from this screen. So you grab the link and then you can email that out. The reason for that is that when you are, say we go in and we participate in the exchange, we click on participate, I choose my group, maybe I'm going to identify as sales. If I were to grab this link up here from the URL, I'm actually going to send everyone in the exchange just to this one participant group. So I would be actually bypassing the way that they could hop into the exchange and choose the group. I'd be putting everyone into the sales one. So again, best practice. Let's go back. When you are on this screen here, always grab the link from invite and then use the traditional or the scrolling, whichever you prefer. Really important to make sure that the groups function correctly. Perfect. So that's the demo for how it looks to set it up. Remember that the order is question, introduction, participant group, and then survey questions. Always go through in that order. Remember that you can participate in it as a way to preview what the exchange will look like, but when you are inviting people, you should always grab from the invite button and not from the URL. All right, so those are the big details in terms of setting it up. I want to actually hop into a dashboard together now so that you can see what it looks like for you as an exchange leader. So we've gone over that as a participant, they're able to only see and rate each other's thoughts. What I have here is a sample dashboard for a exchange that had, as you can see, 8 participant groups. And you can see on the overview page, I'm looking at everything. So in summary, I had 582 people participate, 318 thoughts, and 3,800 stars. But if I wanted to get really specific and look at just one group, I can choose the group and then it will load and show me here. From this group, I had 87 participants, 34 thoughts, and 285 stars. So again, it's showing you the collated data for all together, and then you can disaggregate it and look at it all separated too. That can be really valuable. Then you could see your survey questions results too. Again, from everyone, and then you can select the specific group and narrow in on that. And that ability to narrow in on the specific group exists in a lot of these different features over here in the dashboard. So for example, if you look at the thoughts view, you could look at what thoughts were most important for each participant group. And you could even use this if you have your groups open and you're looking in your exchange. Oh, I just saw a question come through. Oh, question just came through. That's a really good one to clarify. You may have already said, but is there a reason the participant group name is a long number and not leadership? You will see it as whatever group that you set it up as. So whatever name that you set it up as, we stripped this one off for confidentiality and just replaced it with numbers as well. But for you, you would see these numbers as, for example, sales, marketing, leadership. Perfect. All right, so hope that clarified that for you, but you are really able to narrow in on this, and remember that you can always create a report of top thoughts. So if you wanted to create that PDF of these are the top thoughts for what professional development opportunities sales wants, these are the top thoughts for what marketing wants, for example. You can also dig into that too on the themes as well. That can be really powerful for you in understanding what are the themes that are most important for each group. I know that we talk a lot about having it all together, so we can do that all together, but when you're thinking about strategic action, and with this example of professional development in mind or of offering these sessions, you would want to know exactly what each group wants. So then your themes would be really powerful. You would have, for example, technical skills, project management skills. Maybe in the sales one, you see a huge conversation about negotiations and objections. And maybe in the learning and development one, you see one about building curriculum and resources too. So lots of ability for you to take this information and have it be really specific and actionable. If you are looking for the type of exchange where you're able to break your information down on a granular level and then use it to inform direct action planning, this is a really strong tool to do exactly that. And I'll point out that you can get even more specific with heat maps. So remember that when we were talking about participation groups and survey questions, we talked about heat maps being one of those layering tools. So what you can actually do is you can choose a theme set. You can choose your specific participation groups, and then you could even choose your survey questions that you want it to show. So it's getting really specific. This is showing us just what is important to this one participation group, what are their survey question results, and then what are the themes that are coming up there as well. Perfect. So it lets you get granular. If you haven't seen heat maps before, welcome. This is your comparative analysis tool. It allows you to compare results of what's important to different groups by what themes have come up. And you can see that these tiles indicate a crossover. So for this group, the most important topic, this dark color here, is safety and security. Whereas for this group over here, the most important topic was to discuss increasing achievement. And we do have a masterclass all about this tool too. So if you want to learn more, you can check that out as well. Perfect. So those are really the big details of participant grouping. It's fairly simple. You're already used to working in the dashboard. Your participants are already used to going through and identifying themselves using survey questions. It's essentially adding an additional layer on for you to be able to find more value in segmenting and parsing the results as well. So if you've been to a masterclass before, you know what's coming up. Next, we are going to hop into a Q&A exchange, but I do want to point out that we have a video of what we just covered today on our help site. Just search segmenting with participation groups, and you can rewatch that. We're recording today, so we'll send out a recording of the session. You can zoom back on it, pause whatever part, so it can support you in setting up your exchanges too. But let's hop in and actually create an exchange together. So I'm just going to create new exchange question, and I'm going to ask you what your thoughts and questions about groups. And we are live, so I'm going to skip writing the introduction. We don't have a large enough group today to do participant groups. That is another thing to think about. Make sure that your audience that you're reaching out to is large enough to be able to do so. I'm going to click on launch, grab the link, click on present. If you haven't used presenter mode yet, you have access to this and you can use it in a setting just like what we're doing today. Click on present, and I'm going to pop the link into the chat. And you can also join using the QR code. I'm going to give us 3 minutes for questions so that we have enough time to get through them. Click on play. So make sure you ask your questions and then rate the thoughts of others. If we don't get to all of them, we will create a leader report to answer all of the other questions too. And hardest part of hosting these live exchanges is I am going to mute myself so you have some space to think and ask your questions. All right, well, let's dig into some of these together so that we can make sure that we address them. We have 4 minutes left. We should be able to get through 4 thoughts. So it seems like a valuable tool in that you can get more granular as to things that are more or less important to particular segments of the population. Absolutely. It allows you to get more granular, and it allows your participants to be more specific as well. So if you have been running exchanges and you're looking for a way to find more specific information, participant groups might be that answer for you too. Next thought, if a person can only see their group's response by default and vote or rank those, is there a way to have them see everyone's regardless of group? There is not. So the design of this feature is that it does segment people in and have them just participate and rate with their group. So if, for example, maybe you have a person or a stakeholder who would identify with 2 groups, they would need to choose one to participate in, or you would need to just use survey questions instead of participant groups. Makes running exchanges easier. I sure hope so. I really love this feature as a way to build that actionable, strategic working with results plan. If you're really looking for a way to have your results be easily understandable, be actionable, and maybe even you have different committees looking at different areas, it allows you to parse and segment the work of that a little bit too. Perfect. Using the lab slideshow feature, is there an opportunity to create slides for each participation group, or is it just overall data? Make life much easier if I was sending it to each department lead. This is a brilliant idea. So right now it is for everyone all together, but I am going to bring this back to the product team. As you know, when things are in TE labs, they're still early days, they're experimental, and so we're looking for feedback. So this is really valuable, and I will bring this back to them as well. So another thing to keep in mind too, when you're creating the summary report, is that the summary reports are for the exchange as a whole, not for one group. They can toggle through the groups the same way that on a summary report, you can toggle through survey questions too. Oh, and that is our last thought in the exchange. So thank you all so much for taking this time out of your Monday morning or Monday afternoon if you're on the East Coast. We hope that it was really valuable and that we'll see you at future masterclasses. Again, you can look at that help site article. So go to the help site, search participant groups, and watch that video too for a refresher, and we'll send you a follow-up as well. So happy thought exchanging. Thanks, everyone.